The new world of work, fueled by rapid technology enhancements, is transforming organizations around the globe. In the digital workplace, the rules of the game have changed, allowing you to get your job done from anywhere. My name is Ulrika Hedlund. I'm passionate about technology and the impact it can have on our lives. In this video series, I'll share my expertise to help you succeed in the digital workplace. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of How to Succeed in the Digital Workplace. In this session, we'll be talking about how to build a kick-ass team in Microsoft Teams in 10 steps. Now, creating a team in Microsoft Teams that is a digital environment for your team to enhance their teamwork and really perform better is a huge topic. It entails organizational behavior, communication, leadership skills, and so much more. It's nothing that you will master after watching this video. But anyway, I wanted to share what I believe to be the 10 most important things that you need to think about when you build your digital team. For those of you who have followed our blogs, or for those of you that have access to the Storyals learning content, you know that we always compare a team in Microsoft Teams with a house and a channel with a room. We're going to continue with that analogy today. But before we go into the different steps, it's extremely important that you understand why. Why would we leave email and sending attachments to one another and replace that way of working with a modern collaborative style in Microsoft Teams? So in order to really have that ammunition, what are the benefits and why are we doing this? I recommend that you read my blog called The Pros and Cons of Microsoft Teams. Here you will see the advantages, but also some of the disadvantages. I can also recommend that you read the blog How to Succeed with Microsoft Teams. That would also give you some more guidance on things that you would have to do to really help everyone get on board this new way of working. So with that, let's start with step number 1. Decide what type of house to build. A team can either be an org-wide team for everyone in your organization, so-called org-wide team, or for a subset of people in your organization. Understandably, org-wide teams require a lot of planning and involvement by your IT administrators, so we'll leave that out for today's session. So if you're not creating an org-wide team, that leaves a normal team. That could either be a departmental team reflecting your org structure, like a marketing team, a sales team, or so on. Or it can be a project-based team that's set up with different people across departments, as well as external people that work on various engagements. Depending on the size of your organization, you might already have guidelines in place. For instance, what to call a team or what the security settings are. But if you don't, there are certain things that you should think about. For instance, if it's a departmental team, what should it be called so that the various departments follow the same naming convention? You also need to decide if it should be an open house or if you need to have a door to restrict who's let in. In Microsoft Teams, this would relate to a team either being private or public. A public house is visible to everyone in the organization, and anyone who wants can join. A private team, on the other hand, requires that you have someone that lets you in. A word of caution here. It might be very easy to say that, hey, we have a very open policy and very open culture within our organization. Let's make all of our teams public so that everyone can see what's going on. Sounds great in theory, but in practice, it can be a bit tricky. The reason for that is when you share files within a team, everyone by default has access to those files. Not only read access, but also editing access. So you want to make sure that everyone doesn't access those documents and by mistake start to edit them. It might be better to set up a structure where you have private teams and you invite people from different departments to collaborate with one another, even if they're not actively working in that team. Step number 2, use your old furniture or get new. If you're a startup or if you're just starting to use Microsoft 365, you have the luxury of starting from scratch. But for many organizations, this is not the case. Just like when you're moving into a new apartment, you either bring your old furniture or you have the luxury of starting fresh and buying all new furniture. For organizations and teams, it's pretty much the same thing. Many already have a long history of things that they've worked on, files and document libraries. So you need to look at, are you going to bring those with you or are you going to start everything from scratch? When you create a team in Microsoft Teams, you can link that to an existing Office 365 group and thereby keep using the existing SharePoint library that you're using. A word of caution, though, is that the structure within Teams is a little bit different. In Teams, files get organized per channel, so each channel get their own folder in the folder structure. And this might be something that you're not fully familiar with. Even if you have an existing Office 365 group with OneNote and with your documents, it might be worth looking into if you want to start a team from scratch and then just move some of those things over instead of just creating the team directly to the existing Office 365 group. There's no right or wrong here. You just have to look at your specific case. Step number 3, design rooms suitable for your work. Now you have your house. And if you haven't built it using a module house, which in Teams corresponds to using a Teams template with predefined channels and tabs, all you have is the general channel. Now, you need to start thinking about what channels or what rooms you need to have to support your work. This really is a joint effort with everyone in your team. If you're a very small team, then perhaps just using the general channel is a good start. But if you're a larger team and if you have different work streams that you work on, you might want to start out with having different channels for those different work-related streams. Again, think about it as a physical office where you have different rooms where you work on different things. Here is an example of a marketing department team. Here we have a channel for social media, events, websites, newsletters, team fun, and random ideas and questions. It's important when you create your different rooms that you think about if they should be used for ongoing work or if they should just be used once for specific engagement. For example, do you want to set up a dedicated channel for planning the annual summer event that you after the event never use again? Or do you want to have a channel for all events you execute throughout the year? If the same people are working on the events, and if there's not too much overlap so that there might be confusion between the events, it might be better to just keep it in one channel. If, however, you have different people working on different events at the same point in time, separate channels might be the preferred way just to manage the work more easily. Step number 4, dedicate some private rooms. By default, everyone in your house can access all rooms and see what's going on. In general, this is great for increasing knowledge sharing and communication. But sometimes you might need to discuss things in private. In addition to the most obvious things that you would create a dedicated private room or private channel for, like management, it might also be useful to create channels for one-to-one communication. Let me tell you why. There are two ways to send text messages in Microsoft Teams. Either you can post a message in a conversation and @mention someone, or you can send a chat message. A chat message pops up on the receiver screen and is best suited for things that need a response right away. But if your message isn't time sensitive, a one-to-one channel might be more suitable. Here, you have a place where you can discuss things that aren't necessarily right now. The benefit of having it in a channel is also that you can see it in your activity feed, just like your other conversations. Step number 5, create a floor plan. Before you invite people into your house, create a floor plan with an overview of your house so people know where to go to do what. In the General tab, I recommend adding a tab called About This Team. And for each channel, an About This Channel tab. If you're using the out-of-the-box template for Teams, each channel comes with a Wiki tab. I'm not particularly fond of wikis in general. They're hard to copy from one place to another. You can't easily copy and paste things in there and search them. But for something like a floor plan or about this team or about this channel, they're quite useful. They're quick to load and they look pretty good. Write who and what the team is for. Where do you go to do what? Make sure that your channel owners properly describe what work is carried out in that channel and what guidelines should be followed. What information goes where? Are the conversations totally random, or do they follow some structure? In some of our teams, we have defined what we called a structured channel. A structured channel means that each thread belongs to a specific topic. In our media production team, a thread is related to a specific video in our library, and we keep all of the conversations related to that video in that thread. Step number 6, pin things of importance to the walls. So now you've built your house, you've created your different rooms where you will do your work. Now it's time to make these rooms cozy and functional. Pin things up on the walls that your team needs to deliver. In Microsoft Teams, these things that you pin on the walls correspond to tabs. So add tabs like your strategy or your goals or how you're progressing towards those goals. Put up frequently used files and other questions that people might need to get answers to often. These tabs aren't just limited to showing documents. Something I can warmly recommend here is to use Planner. Planner is like a bulletin board of tasks that you can easily move around. You can assign tasks to different people, and then you can see a visual representation of the status of those different tasks. Here you can also pin third-party applications. Perhaps your sales team is using a CRM system that they need to access through here, or your support team need to access incidents or service request reports. So look through the many available apps and add them to the walls of your room. Step number 7, organize your stuff and accept that it will get messy. Each channel within the team will get their own Files tab, where files are stored in a folder in the SharePoint document library that belongs to the whole team. Again, This might not be the way that your team is used to organizing their files, but this is the way that the team's structure is built up. The beauty is that whether people know it or not, they're actually storing their documents in the cloud in a SharePoint document library, which enables co-authoring and the ability to access your documents from anywhere. One of the downsides with this setup is that as soon as someone attaches a file to a post in the channels, the file gets added to the root of the document library. You don't have the choice of where to place that document. So if you really need to have a structured approach for your documents, what I recommend that you can do is that you can set up a separate SharePoint library that you then attach as a tab into your team. Here you can have different sharing permissions, you can put metadata and other things to make sure that you have a good document management system in place. The good thing also is that you can do this not only in your own team, but you could add that document library then to other teams. In our company, we have an official image library set up with our latest thumbnail images that is separate from the production team, since that one gets pretty messy. Step number 8, facilitate communication with tags. If you have a small house, you can easily call people by name. But if you have a pretty large house, this becomes pretty cumbersome. In Teams, this corresponds to mentioning people. So what you can do is that you can use tags. So think of this as putting name tags or labels on your different people. And then instead of having to calling out their individual names, you can just call the group. Using tags really simplifies communication. One downside is that currently the management of these tags are a manual process. Step number 9, make your house smart. Now that you're moving into this new house, think of the endless possibilities that you can enable. In a physical house, this would be automatic lighting, or you can clap your hands and the lights go off, integrated sound systems. Be really, really creative. Same thing for your team. There are so many apps and connectors that you can use to really automate and work smarter using these tools. Don't make the mistake of copying manual processes into Teams. Look at new ways of how you can automate things. Let me just show you some of the examples of apps that we use in our organization. Here is an example of how we provide our Storyals learning content right from within Teams, leveraging the Teams app LMS 365. Users can see their own training dashboards, and they can click to play the learnings right from within Teams. Here, they can also explore other types of learnings that they have access to. Another example of what you can do within Teams is to leverage bots. So here we have Stella, our productivity bot. She can help you and guide you to learnings that we have available for our employees. So for instance, I can ask, what is weight? And Stella provides me with a quick overview and a path to learn more. I might want to ask something more specific. For instance, if I'm stuck in my Excel spreadsheet and I want to know how to do a VLOOKUP formula, I always forget. I can ask Stella, Stella, how does VLOOKUP work? Stella then directs me to one of the how-to videos that Microsoft provide as part of Microsoft 365 learning pathways that we have integrated into our SharePoint online intranet site. These are just some examples of how you can use smart tools within Teams to really do your work smarter. If you can't find the app that suits your business needs, then your organization can create one for you using Power Apps and Power Automate. These are really powerful tools that enable you to build quick and easy to use apps that your users can access right from within Microsoft Teams. So make sure that you build a smart house for a new type of working. Now for the final step. Step number 10. Ask for a gate pass. Now that you've created this beautiful house, that you've decorated and you created your various rooms, that it's really, really cozy. You don't want new joiners to run in with dirty shoes and yell and scream and disturb everyone that's actually there to do their work. So what you need to do, you need to ask for a gate pass. In Teams, that corresponds to people actually learning how to use app mentions to communicate, how to structure work in different channels. Within Storyals, we have 2 certificates that people have to get before they're let into our houses. One is Connect and Communicate using Teams. Here, you will learn how to use app mentions, how to use chat, how to use your presence, and how to have online meetings. The second certificate is Enhanced Teamwork. Here you learn how a team is structured with the various channels. Again, using the analogy of a house that people really get. So once they've gotten these certificates, we'll let them into the house. The other thing that is really important, in addition to learning how it works, is to set some ground rules. We call them our house Teams rules. Commit to not using email for internal communication, but to really use Teams. How are you going to communicate and be engaged with one another? What do you mean with the different expressions? One of the most important things when we look at the digital workplace is that we need to simplify things by making things smarter, but we also need to simplify things by reducing many of the options that we have. Now, when you're starting to use Teams, we won't take away the other tools. You will still have Outlook because you need to communicate with the outside world. You will still have SharePoint because you have all of that wealth in your intranet. But still, it's very important for defined projects or for defined departmental activities that people really can trust that the information they need is available there in their team. That brings us to the end of the 10 steps and the end of this session. If Microsoft Teams is new to you, then a lot of this might feel quite overwhelming. All I can say is that once you get used to this new way of working, you will never want to go back to using email and attached files anymore. The transparency, the knowledge sharing, and also the fun way of working will be a huge benefit that you will not want to be without. With that said though, no one moves into their dream house day one. It takes time. So start creating your first team, follow some of the guidance that I have given you, and I can promise you that soon you will have that world-class team. Thank you for watching. Bye.